Like, what action, like if I spend 30 hours doing this for you, like what action do you want to take? And if you can't really tell me that, I'm going to probably keep asking you the question. Even if you're the client and you want me to get started, I probably won't until you articulate for me like what you actually want out of it. So it's just.
I mean, it's funny though. Like sometimes it's a struggle for the brands we work with to actually define, those priorities.
Yeah.
But we always try to help them to do that. But I'm totally, 100% with what you're saying. For example, like the AI features and capabilities. For some brands, based on their priorities and their short-term and even like the longer-term objectives, those features might not be that relevant for them today. So part of that audit is to help prioritize, like have a roadmap, but also help prioritize what's probably going to be like the best few next steps for you.
Yeah.
So we have that alignment. We're only relying on best practices, but best practices are like for everyone. It's not really aligned with you. So it's just like through iterating with that and learning a lot from you and others on the team. To be honest, it's just that it always helps a lot to align with the brand's objectives and current challenges and current outcomes they're looking for to drive value quickly.
Get ready to deep dive into the world of digital transformation, where we explore the latest trends, innovations, and challenges shaking up industries. Join us as we decode the secrets behind successful digital strategies and hear from experts who are at the forefront of disrupting the status quo. In each episode, we'll unravel the mysteries of the digital realm and uncover the hidden opportunities that lie within. From artificial intelligence to blockchain, from automation to cybersecurity, we'll leave no digital stone unturned. But hold on tight, because this podcast isn't your average tech talk. We're injecting a hefty dose of wit and humor into every episode, making learning about digital transformation an absolute blast. So if you're ready to embrace the digital revolution with a smile on your face, tune in to the Digital Disruption Podcast and get ready to be entertained, informed, and inspired. Don't miss out on the fun. Subscribe now and join us on this wild digital journey. All right. Hello and welcome to the Digital Disruption Podcast. How you doing, Ahmad? It's been a while since we've had you on the show.
I'm good. I'm glad to be back, actually. It's been a while.
Yeah,
How are you doing?
yeah, doing well. It's super cold here in Montana the last couple weeks, so it's been along with the snow. I'm over the cold. I'm okay with the snow, but I'm definitely kind of looking forward to spring.
Yeah, I can't say it's much better here in Lebanon, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm also looking forward to spring as well, but it's nice to go on hikes in this weather.
Nice, yeah, for sure. And I guess we'll be seeing each other face to face here in about a week in Cairo, which will be, I guess it'll be a little cool there as well, yeah. But soon we'll be crawling inside the pyramids and cruising on the Nile River, so looking forward to that.
Same here. Have you been to the pyramids before?
I have, but I've never actually been inside, with a tour guide. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. That'll be cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Cool.
and of course, not that it's a big deal for you living in Lebanon, but I'm looking forward to grabbing Ferris and going to the Lebanese restaurant in Cairo, like we did last year with Ahmed Seti, and we had enough food for about 20 people for the four of us.
Yeah, that's gonna be something to look forward to, definitely.
Yeah, and I'm stopping. I have my stopover in Istanbul is like half a day, so I'm gonna go check out like Hagia Sophia, and so I'll get to see a little bit of Istanbul as well, which I've never been to before. So
Nice, nice. A taste of everything on this trip,
Yeah, yeah,
hopefully.
yeah. So, well, cool. Well, uh, for those of you who have not seen the episode with Ahmed, where he discussed mobile measurement platforms with Yigit from Adjust, Ahmed's our internal subject matter expert on mobile measurement, and he also works quite a lot with customer engagement, marketing automation tools. So as this space changes so frequently, we thought we'd have a conversation about what's latest and greatest in mobile measurement that you should be paying attention to, and also touch on customer acquisition as it pertains to marketing automation, customer engagement tools, and things like that. So appreciate you jumping on today. I guess we could just dive right in here. What are we seeing? I guess two questions to sort of kick us off. What are you hearing from clients right now related to customer acquisition and customer engagement? And we'll kind of then start working our way into the tools and the process piece. But I mean, what are you hearing in the marketplace? Where are our clients' priorities at? What are some of the challenges, I guess, that they're seeing?
Yeah, let's kick off there then. To be honest, not much has changed since in terms of challenges, not much has changed since the last episode. We still see the same struggles regarding iOS campaign assessment when it comes to mobile and scan specifically. But also, in addition to that, there is a lot of additional features introduced by MMPs and CEPs. And brands tend to follow the trend, or at least get the excitement to adopt more of these features. But not we don't always see the concept being grasped of how to use it effectively. Marketing is gonna remain marketing. The essentials need to be there for any results to be attained. So it's tough to balance that. So it's still the same challenges, but somehow it has evolved a bit.
Got it. So you'd say, from the marketer's perspective and from the brand's perspective, the challenges are still pretty similar, but maybe what the tools can offer is changing and becoming more sophisticated. Maybe offering some more levers to improve performance, perhaps.
Definitely, there's some
Oh,
features that drive better performance, but at the same time, it's not going to be for every brand.
yeah,
And as you always say, Patrick, like you could have the best tools, but unless you use them properly and in alignment with your own strategies and your own needs, it's not going to bring that much value. So the features are there.
you know,
Uh, a segment of our clients and brands we work with would benefit from the introduction of those features, but it's not for everyone.
yeah,
And
yeah.
yet we get this, interest from the brands to learn more about what these features are and how they can introduce them into their own, day-to-day operations.
Makes sense. So, I mean, I guess globally, especially for retailers, travel and hospitality, brands. I mean, some of the recurring challenges that we always hear is, how can I bring down my customer acquisition? How can I increase the stickiness and the loyalty and value of my existing customers and guests? Right? How can I incentivize, or not necessarily incentivize, but how can I influence repeat purchase rates, right? Repeat booking rates. So you're still seeing those kind of hover. I mean, you still see kind of client priorities hovering around those kinds of end goals.
Definitely. It's just that these solution or like what could actually help each of the brands is going to be different based
Yeah,
on their own digital maturity,
sure.
their own challenges, their MarTech stack. So it depends, but yeah, it's in line with that. It's either regarding lowering acquisition costs and costs in general, and then optimizing, revenue, and while keeping in mind the most important part, the user experience and the customer experience along that journey.
Nice. And so where do you see, I guess I'd rather focus on people who are doing things right so that we give, I guess, our listeners good models, right, of like where they should be taking this. Because I agree with you, right? Like, I'm not a fan of technology for technology's sake ever. It's like, it's going to end up sitting on the shelf. If you don't take the time to like plan it, implement it, onboard it, train your people, or work with a vendor who knows what they're doing, like these tools just produce subpar results regardless of how good their feature sets are. So, and then the tool ends up getting blamed when it's like really like an implementation or integration issue, or you're just not utilizing it to its fullest capability. So, I would love to just talk through like what are some of the more. Let's start on the customer engagement side of things, I guess, because I think we're seeing more and more brands adopt these platforms, especially in the MENA region. The folks who are getting the most out of this, what are you seeing? Like kind of walk me through what is like a properly digitally mature kind of implementation and utilization of these platforms look like.
Oh, that's a lot to unwrap, to be honest. But let's assume that they're just at a stage where they have their acquisition or attribution reporting done accurately. They're doing their checks and audits, and we can get to that later on in this chat. The importance of doing these audits to make sure that you have the right data. Let's assume that they have this covered, and they're currently have their data activation layer just relying on the CEP for now, like the customer engagement platform, because they could have much more, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's for this kind of brand. If they're doing they have the essentials in terms of journeys and flows for each of these steps in the user lifecycle, then they are doing quite an effective job at least personalizing the experience based on where that user or consumer is along that journey.
Can we unpack that? Can we pause there and unpack that? So, like, just because some people may not even have thought about what you just said. So, you're saying for wherever a customer is in their customer life cycle, a mature customer engagement program, they would have a corresponding campaign or flow within their customer engagement platform, right? Is that what I just heard you say?
Yeah, or multiple journeys
or multiple, right?
Ways to segment these audiences and segment the users. Yeah, so if you want to take it a step further, so if you take that initial stage where somebody is just being introduced to the brand, they've never visited the website before, they've never downloaded the app before, this is their first interaction with the brand. So you can assume some essential flows to exist at that stage, right? So it's either an onboarding flow where you could take them through the different features or sections of the website or the app, or you could help them with that install or first visit to sign up flow, where you can at least collect some data and offer them something of value to drive that first conversion. So that's for that segment of audience that have never visited before. And even these two journeys or flows could have different tonalities, different even languages, a language based on the IP address, the preference, or the language selection on their first visit. It's all ties together. So it's not just one flow for each stage or objective. It's rather the more you can segment the audience and tailor the journey or the flow or the messaging or the anything you want to show them based on what they shared with you, their preferences, the better of a job you're doing to actually align with the experience they're expecting. We're all actually at that, competition to please the audience and make sure that they have a good experience with us, so at least we don't drive them away to competition, and we drive that interest for them to visit again.
Absolutely. No, I mean, even hearing you talk about those very early stage kind of engagement opportunities, right? Like, how do you give people even a reason to like sign up? Like if I'm interacting with your brand for the first time and I don't even know if I want to give you my money yet and do business with you, how are some ways that like brands are incentivizing people to give minimal contact information and learn more about you, right? That's a great opportunity. Like you don't have to, it's not a binary, right? You either converted this person or you didn't, right? Like there's ways to incentivize people to like interact with you even before they become a customer, right? So
It's all about value, definitely, like the value that you're offering. But before we get to that question, there's one step before that. Like, what got that audience or that user on the website? Is it a specific campaign? Is it more of organic search? Is it like, there's different reasons, and I would say like even that attribution data should be accounted for as part of the CEP journey customization.
I
And
would
then
agree wholeheartedly. Yeah.
yeah, even the incentive would to actually share the data would follow that whole journey. So we can assume it's actually happening through, for example, an organic search regarding a specific product. Then maybe my journey, onboarding journey, should have or include that at least product category. If they came in through an influencer campaign, maybe including the influencer as part of that onboarding journey, whether it's through a video or through some kind of images they see on the website for when they first visit. That could be something also that could be accounted for. So it's not just the CEP here working at play. There's also, do we have our attribution data ready for activation as well
Yes.
that early?
I couldn't agree more. There's a lot of intent wrapped up in how a person gets to your website, or at least potentially so. There's channels where it doesn't tell you a lot, but I mean, certainly if they come in through certain categories of paid search or organic search, absolutely, especially if you're starting to get into product, right? Did that person like land from search directly on a product detail page, right? Like, I think the influencers, that's a great example. It's like something drove that person to interact with your brand. And in this case, it was a particular person, either explicitly or implicitly endorsing your brand or your product, right? So yeah, and I mean, I think getting personalization started in your engagement channels as soon as you can. I think like if we could hit pause and we could like put a huge call out on what you just said there, like you have a lot of information at your disposal if you're measuring and collecting properly, that you can start delivering personalized experiences very early in the customer's journey. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And you can imagine like the difference that could drive for the user. But as we always tell like the brands that we work with, it's not about that ideal state. You can always start at any state and maybe drive a higher conversion rate to that data collection for a first-time visitor. But having the end in mind, or where you can get to, is also something that's going to help you, improve and perfect that journey.
Yeah.
Offer something that's unique to the visitor.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Right. If you're at the stage, if you're sending sort of broadcast emails, the same message to everybody today, then maybe you do some good segmentation and start offering like segmented messaging. And then maybe once you've implemented that segmented messaging, now then you start incorporating your product feeds and you start incorporating a much more like truly personalized experience. But yeah, it's always possible to deliver a better user experience than where you're at currently. I think that's a great way to say that. It's like, maybe you're not going to achieve perfection tomorrow, but there's always a way to like make a step towards a better experience and ultimately a more performative channel, right? Is what you're ultimately trying to get to. Yeah, hopefully. Yeah. No, I love that.
Yeah. Experience for the user, definitely. But back to the question you were asking, there's definitely many default ways you can actually leverage to capture some data. For example, like some discount offer on that first transaction. In some industries, like maybe we're talking about retail now, but for example, in fintech, have a crypto trading client, for example, that offers educational content, and that's interesting enough to capture for a user to offer their email in return for
Yeah.
that information. So it's going to definitely depend, but as long as you're offering some value that's worth somebody sharing their information, that's going to help a lot, definitely.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and retail may other than like Hermes and like the upper end of luxury. I mean, almost every retailer is going to give you some incentive, on your first order, like even if it's as little as like 5% off or something. But almost every retailer is if you're willing to trade them your email address and phone number. Everybody's willing to give you a discount off your first order. It seems like today, yeah.
Have you seen, like you work with a lot of brands as well. Have you seen any other incentives at offer to get first time visitors to share their information?
I mean, one of the things interesting I see on Nike online is like exclusive access to member only products, which is cool. I mean, Nike does have a lot of brand loyalists, right? It's a brand that's been around for a long time. So I don't know. That doesn't necessarily work for every, e-commerce category, but I think for like if you're either trying to establish a kind of a cult following, loyal following to your product, or you already have one, I think that can obviously be cool. I think certainly for like millennials and Gen Zers, like they're very kind of tuned into experiences and events right now, right? Like that's a huge priority for them. So I think if you could tie into like anything you can do with local like brand pop-ups or tie your brand in with local events and things like that. So if you can incentivize people to sign up in order to, get invites to these kinds of events that are like closely aligned to your brand, that kind of stuff has a lot of potential. But
Yeah, really sounds interesting, to
yeah,
be honest. Yeah. And
yeah,
it's always like it's good to actually experiment and see what's going to work for your brand as well. But yeah, I see why each of these would be quite interesting to test out.
yeah, for sure. But yeah, no, it's interesting. I think um, it's funny that I mean, like AI and all this stuff, all the buzzwords are on the tip of everybody's tongue, but um, the challenges and the sort of the business challenges and the business priorities, as you said at the top of the call, they're not really changing that much. So it's kind of like, are we, like it's important not to lose sight of, whatever technologies you're going, like however sophisticated, from basic to very advanced, like ultimately you're really trying to sort of move the needle on a few core things, right? Like make it more efficient to capture new customers, make it more effective and better experience for existing customers, make it easier for them to continue to transact with you and be loyal to you and etc. Right? But there's not a lot. Those kind of core needs aren't changing that much, but the way we kind of achieve them is definitely not that I don't like to dive into specific tools that often on the podcast, but we're obviously a close partner with MoEngage, who is the kind of customer engagement platform that we work most closely with. Just to not to get sort of seduced by the technology, but like just what are some of the feature sets that I guess maybe have changed over the last 12 months, maybe that you're seeing help drive performance against those needs?
Let's say there's quite a few, but as you're saying, some of these features are just making the day of the marketer easier by introducing some automations.
Yeah,
But
that's
others
right. Like those kinds of things. Yeah, even those kinds of that's really important. Yeah.
definitely, but also some of the features are actually speeding up that personalization capability, where it's not just sharing information back to you to make decisions, but actually taking that decision and activating the changing the flow based on the preferences or the engagement of the user. So for example, like you have AI as part of Mo Engage, for example, and it's not just specific for this CEP, but some of the features around that include some preferred engagement methods or preferred channel detection, and automatically changing the flow or the journey based on the interaction, the past interactions of this user. So for example, somebody that you've actually sent push notifications and emails and as well as WhatsApp messages to, we have that engagement data with each of these messages for them historically. So based on that, you could create a flow and have a preferred channel branching. So based on their behavior, they're going to receive the message through the channel that they previously preferred engaging through.
And and me as the marketer, just to pause you for a second, and I as the marketer, I don't have to say, I just have to have those branches. Exactly. And then Mo Engage is going to say, no, this, Patrick prefers WhatsApp, so send him the WhatsApp branch. I don't actually have to like put Patrick into that branch, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
You don't need, it just does it on its own. And another feature that's in line with this one has to do with A/B testing, but at the same time, you don't want to wait till the results come in fully. You can just let it optimize on its own as it goes. So it's the sampling, it's doing the assessment, and then instead of sending 50% down branch A and 50% down branch B, actually it's allocating a higher percentage for the more successful branch. And that's in terms of the you choose, whether that's for example, like session duration or a conversion or just a specific action that's done on the website or app. That's up to you to decide. But the optimization and that change in how much of the traffic actually is sent in each direction is done automatically as well.
Yeah. No, I think just that's really important. And I think when some advertisers, they feel like they're sort of behind the curve on this whole AI thing, I think it's really important to remember, like a lot of these ad tech and martech tools, they increasingly have these embedded AI capabilities that are kind of behind the scenes, like doing this modeling, doing these predictive tasks, automating some optimization decisions, right? Like, so if you're using tools that are sufficiently sophisticated enough, like even if you're not like developing your own AI capabilities as a brand, you're likely already leveraging a fair amount of AI in your day-to-day marketing, right? Like, and I think that Mo Engage example there is a really strong one. And I come from a paid search background, so it's like, I sometimes have a bit of a built-in skepticism around, like say in Google Ads, it's like, do you just, do you sort of like just put the blinders on, like set a budget and set a target and let the fucking, let the beast like run its course, like, and then at the end of the month, like see what happened? Or like, do you still, like what levers do you still, need to and want to pull as a marketer, like, cause I come from a time when it was like really, if you really wanted to eke as much performance as possible, there was a lot of manual, or let's say outside of the platform optimization that you were doing.
Yeah, I totally get that. I feel the same about, these different, let's say, advertising partners and the capabilities there. There's some autonomous optimization and algorithms that I'm not really sure, but I've heard a few things from Haytham, who's our growth lead at e-CENS. Maybe we can introduce him on another session.
Yeah, but for sure.
He kind of mentioned that to one of our brands on one of the calls, one of our clients asking about this. And he talked about maybe introducing these features have to do with what you already know first. And if you're hitting that like scalability limits, and you already have the learnings, and it's you're now confident that you can detect if there is a misperformance there, then it would be a good time to introduce more of these capabilities. But I'm still not convinced, to be honest. Let's see.
Yeah, it's an interesting quandary. And I think it depends on different channels as well. And it also depends on all of that automation. like let's use MoEngage as an example because that's a really attractive type of automation to my mind. Um, like if you don't have good messaging, and if like the places you're landing people in your app or on your website, if you're not delivering a good experience when they once they get there, if your ad creative, you know, in your emails is not good, if your messaging isn't good, if your offers aren't compelling compared to your competition, if I mean all those things still like even if you're automating things, like all of those foundational things still need to also be right. Like if you're putting personalized headlines into ad creative, it still needs to be good ad creative, right? Like, so yeah, I mean, it shouldn't be thought of as a substitute for like getting the marketing and advertising fundamentals right.
Definitely, 100%. And that's like
Yeah.
why audits are really important. Like, so if you have a problem in mind and you think like this is the solution for it, that's definitely going to be accurate because you know the brand and you know what challenges you're facing. But in addition to that, there might be more around it that's hindering the outcomes. And
Yeah.
it's not easy to just bring in a tool that's going to make things easier on a day-to-day basis or just automate or make it quicker to have those data activations. It's really essential to have the basics covered as well, definitely. And this is why we always start with just doing an audit, understanding more about the current objectives, and then just trying to align what is currently set up with best practices and just highlighting the gap. So we know we don't want to cover it all, but at least you would have a roadmap of where you can go to and the steps included along the path, so you can just start somewhere.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's important. What in terms of a customer engagement platform, what are the kind of core not the detailed roadmap, but just like what are the kind of key pillars of a CEP audit, you know, when we do one, just to kind of get people thinking like what are the core areas that they need to get right?
Yeah, it's multiple steps. The first is to make sure that we're aligning with the brand, the different channels available, as well as the main objectives in terms of short term and long term for the marketing team or the brand overall. It all needs to start from that point because this is what's important to the brand. Then you have the checks that you could actually do in terms of the data being collected. So you could have possibilities of automations as long as you have the right triggers on the CEP or within MoEngage. So checking what data is being captured and shared into MoEngage is going to be the foundation of what should we be looking for as we go through this audit, as what's possible. Of course, we also at that point we can actually surface what could be improved in terms of the input that we're driving into MoEngage as well, or other CEPs.
So would this be like events, conversion events, user interaction events, metadata about their, let's say, shopping or browsing behaviors? Is that the kind of things you're talking about, like what we might capture?
Yeah. And add to that, like user parameters, you have different data points you could capture for offline versus online, whether you're combining these data points or not, what data you're sharing with offline data versus online. Could you actually unify those data points when a phone number is provided or X data point is provided? So all of these are gonna, they're gonna impact how much value you can get out of your CEP implementation, definitely.
Yeah.
That's like step two. And like in terms of from there moving forward, it's the customer journey, the life cycle we were talking about, those different steps, like first time visit towards that first purchase point, first time they actually a user performs, pays something, sees value, and actually is willing to pay. Then you have that upselling, cross-selling, and replenishment kind of journey. It's just the flow, the usual flow that brand experiences or would like to offer to their users and customers. So we're checking for the flows at each stage, and we're looking for additional data points as well, such as, for example, RFM analysis, which you could actually create with different tools. But within MoEngage, it's also, you can activate those different segments based on the recency, frequency, and monetary value analysis. and create the right flows for those. You could have different tonalities with the different segments of the RFM analysis. Back to the copy that you were talking about. So there's definitely a lot. It starts with where the brand is, the main objectives at this point, then the inputs to the system, because the output is going to definitely depend on the input. And then we go through the outputs and what's actually automated there and what could be improved. The audit doesn't give you, it's not really, it's not going to give you an outcome that's a solution. The solution in this case is going to be more of a roadmap. You're at this point. This is the impact of having these changes, and this is how to implement the changes, and this is how we can help you if you want us to.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yep. No, that's super helpful. I think, just even having a process that starts with the business alignment. I love that, from a technical standpoint, we don't jump into the technical details until we know what the business objectives is. From you, and me, I'm like a broken record about that. I don't want to do anything analysis, insights related until I understand what are we trying to get as an end. What action, if I spend 30 hours doing this for you, what action do you want to take? And if you can't really tell me that, I'm going to probably keep asking you the question. Even if you're the client and you want me to get started, I probably won't until you articulate for me what you actually want out of it. So
it's funny though, sometimes it's a struggle for the brands we work with to actually define those priorities.
Yeah.
But we always try to help them to do that. But I'm totally 100% with what you're saying. For example, the AI features and capabilities for some brands based on their priorities and their short-term and even the longer-term objectives, those features might not be that relevant for them today. So part of that audit is to help prioritize, have a roadmap, but also help prioritize what's probably going to be the best few next steps for you.
Yeah.
So we have that alignment. We're only relying on best practices, but best practices are for everyone. It's not really aligned with you. So it's just through iterating with that and learning a lot from you and others on the team. To be honest, it's just that it always helps a lot to align with the brand's objectives and current challenges and current outcomes they're looking for to drive value quickly.
Yeah. No, it's, some of it's really like basic stuff too, which is if you are, let's say you're a premium brand, luxury brand, you do not maybe the only discounting you do in the entire year is let's say a semi-annual sale where you're closed out discontinued products, right? Well, then a promotional, we're not going to recommend a heavy promotional strategy, right, for your customer engagement channel, because you're not going to have coupons and promo codes and things. We have to get more creative. We have to we're going to align around your new product launches and exclusive brand things, this X, Y, and Z, right? So it even comes down to just the basic DNA of your brand, right? Is going to have a determining a determining impact on what kind of a customer engagement program you run overall, right? For some brands, it's just it is not going to be promotionally driven. It's not appropriate, right? So it's sort of interesting. It all ties back. Ultimately, it all comes back to business alignment, in my opinion, and so it's really strong.
And the same, I think, not to go a bit off topic here, but it's also the same for the MMP setup, and how much accuracy are you looking for as part of your mobile attribution or even campaign attribution? It's not that it's not essential. All I'm saying is that sometimes you look at the overall trends and that's enough. Sometimes there could be some political changes impacting the marketing efforts. So 100%. Keeping the general view in mind and then having the data ready and accurate if you need to dig deeper is important, but you don't always need that much, perfection.
Yeah.
You're looking for that overall improvement and that capability being ready once you need it. So yeah, it's going to depend.
Yeah. Well, you said MMP, mobile measurement partner, mobile measurement platform. I've heard it said both ways. I don't know which is correct. MMP is technically mobile measurement partner, right?
Yeah,
Which is
true.
interesting because most
Definition, I know.
yeah, but what confuses me is we're mostly talking about technology platforms, so I'm not sure why they adopted that name but anyway, it's always confused me a little bit. Um, uh, so in the
You know,
U.S.,
some of these
sorry,
even do web attribution, so so I'm not really sure why
I
it's
know.
even mobile, but I don't
So
know.
yeah, let me ask you a question here, but like I guess as we jump into mobile measurement as well, in the US, it's like when I'm sitting at my laptop and I'm like going through a client's website, like the easy route is always to be looking at a desktop version of the website, but the fact of the matter is like in most of the world and for most people, like a huge percentage of their web interactions are on mobile devices, whether that's on a mobile website or in a mobile app, right? Even in the U.S. market, like some of our e-commerce clients like have mobile traffic is 70% plus of their total traffic in a given month. So if we're always paying attention to desktop, we're obviously not like we're one, like just looking at desktop versions of assets, you're not really getting a good sort of qualitative sense of what user experience is. And then if you're only looking at sort of blended and desktop data, you're also in most cases seeing a very, very imperfect picture of what your users are doing. So I guess I just want to highlight for anybody who's not already aware, which you should be if it's your business, but mobile is a key, core, important part of user experience and the commerce journey for most e-commerce and travel and hospitality, and I would venture to say in any of like the key like transactionally oriented areas of fintech, trading, online trading, crypto, or any of that, most people are doing a lot of that on mobile devices as well. So with that, what's going on in mobile measurement these days?
In terms of challenges, I asked
Uh,
attribution still
or
quite,
Yeah, it's a quite of a broad intro, I know. Yeah. I mean, in terms of, I guess since maybe some people didn't see our first episode related to mobile measurement, I guess like just as a general proposition, what is a mobile measurement partner or MMP? What is it trying to solve for?
it's trying to help you attribute the outcomes of your performance marketing campaigns back to so sorry about that. So you're basically trying to figure out the impact of the campaigns that you're driving on your revenue and your user behavior and even experience. So you're trying to connect the dots. Which campaigns are driving, users of that are valuable, and where is my ad spend well allocated, and what can I improve?
Okay. And initially these platforms emerged to kind of solve for mobile app attribution, right? Like specifically. But as you mentioned a few minutes ago, they also track web, and so they're not. It's not as though they're siloed at this point, but they are. Let's say they're oriented around mobile app, right? In terms of from a tracking
At
standpoint.
the core, it's mobile app attribution, and as you know, like there's a lot more happening now within the ecosystem, like with
Yeah.
Apple scan attribution happening on Apple's side. But definitely, some of these MMPs are also offering some web attribution. But at the core value is still mobile app attribution, and then building around that, offering some additional services such as automation, incrementality testing, and other features that could help you optimize your ad spend.
Okay. And things like, I know like say Firebase, on the sort of cloud app infrastructure side of things, like they retired functionality like deep linking, the deep linking engine and stuff. Do some of these MMPs still support like these kind of uh, functionalities of like app deep linking and things like that?
Yeah, and these also like keep getting upgrades, and they get improvements. So like we're also like close with Adjust. So I know of a few features that they've actually ramped up. Not that they even needed to take it to the next level, but it's just that there's always room to improve the functionality, and deep linking is one of those. And
And so this would be,
drop that functionality because
yeah.
it's
Yeah. So this would be like I see an app or I see an advertisement for a pair of shoes and I have the app installed and I click on that link, and if it's going to be smart enough to know I have the app installed and it can actually take me to that pair of shoes within the mobile app. And if I don't have the app installed, it's going to take me to the app store, right, for my device. That's essentially what deep links are supposed to do?
true,
Or some
100%.
some version of that. Yeah.
That's true, Patrick. And like even if it takes you to the App Store with some, not to get too technical here, but with some requirements, even if you go to the App Store after you download the app, once you open it, it actually takes you or tries to take you to that page where you're seeing the same product on the ad you interacted with.
And that, technically speaking, that's like deferred deep linking. Is that what that is? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No. Yeah. It's just kind of going back to that idea of like smart automation, right? Automation that aligns to business objectives, to providing a user with a better user experience, right? Like there's a clear, like if I click on an ad with a pair of shoes, you can probably guess that that's the pair of shoes I'm interested in, right? Like, so it's not just a gimmick. Like you're not doing these things in order just to be able to like make use of a deep link. It ties back to, okay, this is a way to deliver somebody a better user experience. I don't have to click 3 times once I get to the app because you've already taken me to where you kind of could reasonably assume I wanted to go, right? Like there is a real like use case tied to these functionalities, but and it's kind of an essential one. I think on the attribution side, I'd love to talk because SCAD network, SKAD network. Everybody seems to have their own way of saying it. I've kind of settled on SCAN, I think is the version I prefer. But this is essentially a way of doing aggregate measurement and attribution in the absence of like when user level and device level tracking is not available. Would that be an accurate way of I guess like very succinctly describing SCAN?
Yeah, I'm also on Team Scan, by the way, and
Okay.
it's Apple's answer to privacy centric attribution.
Yeah.
So you're still allowing some attribution insights to be shared with the marketer, but without risking the user's privacy along the path. So that's like in short. It introduces some challenges, of course. Some of it just have to do with being confident with this new setup. With change, there's always this change management required. You're used to you're doing something in a specific way, and now the foundations of that are actually shaken. So it's an issue, but at the same time, it's still data insights that you can build strategies around and have clear decisions as a result. So you just need to have that confidence and understanding of how it works. And the reason I'm still like talking about this is that we still see it as a challenge for some brands. It's common. So if it's not really clear how to leverage SKAd network, that's still a challenge for most brands. And the solutions that we're helping with are actually aligned with the requirements of each brand on its own. So it's really becoming a bit challenging. And now we have like this 3 to 4 months program to help each brand with making sense of iOS attribution data, because there's definitely multiple layers there.
Yeah. So I'm going to try and boil this down to just like I would love to get back into the details, but I'm also going to just boil this down to like the dumbest version I can, just to simplify this in the layman's terms, so one, this is an outgrowth of like everything post iOS 14, right? Like essentially, with the app tracking transparency requirements, right? So like, advertisers lost a huge amount of insight into a big chunk of Apple iOS users, right? So I guess here are the questions I have from a layman's sense. To truly leverage like scan, do I need to, as an advertiser, do I need to configure a mapping of those, like the quote unquote campaigns from a scan perspective, and how those map? Like I have a limited number of I have a limited number of buckets I can put aggregate data into, right? As an advertiser, is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. But you could like those, but the important limitation here is rather towards the post install and how much data you can collect at that stage. Because then
Yes.
you have these 6 bits that you can actually use, so up to like 63 values, 64 values of what happens post install, and you get to define how to map that behavior post install to these bits. It could either
So using those bits, right? So let's put it in terms of like say paid search or paid social. Let's say I have 1,000. Like say I'm a really big travel and hospitality hotel booking engine, and I have like 1,000 campaigns. I would have to do some exercise to say, how can I group these 1,000 campaigns into buckets that are at a lower level of granularity, right? Like aggregate, like like let's say I was only in the US, I could maybe aggregate all my campaigns by state or something, or by region or by tactic or something, right? Like I'd have to do some mapping to those individual bits to say.
That's another set of limitation that's like away from these bits, but true. Based on the volume of installs per day per campaign.
Okay.
And I don't have an exact number, so it's not really like shared, like how much the threshold to be categorized or like put into one of the privacy tiers. Yeah. But you have different tiers, and based on which tier you're at, the main criteria here being keeping the privacy of the customer segment or the user segment. So as long as Apple has enough data points and enough volume to keep the anonymity of the users, there, then they'll share more data, and that includes how much identifiers you have to connect back to the campaigns on your advertising partners. So definitely, that's another limitation altogether. And it's it's also something to keep in mind as you structure the campaign and run it.
Got it. Okay. And can an MMP help automate and manage some of that for an advertiser?
So the MMP helps a lot with SK ad network management and setup, more on the conversion value mapping. So the other part which has to do with the 6 bits and what happens post install. But also there's a lot of integrations that are happen in the background. You don't see them as an MMP user or as like a Google or Meta user or Snapchat user. There's some integrations in the background and a lot of effort done on both sides, the MMP and like Meta side and Google side, to actually leverage what's available as part of Scan effectively. So I would say like for this segment, it's going to be more on the advertising or the self-attributing network or the advertising partner side rather than the MMP, on how to make the best of the campaign structure you offer, and then tweak it in a way that's going to work when you set that campaign to be a Scan iOS campaign.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. Yep. And so you mentioned Meta, and I know they've been making a lot of changes in terms of their own attribution reporting related to, I guess the language they're using is aggregate event measurement, right? But that all relies on the same backbone of Scan, right?
Yeah, to be honest, it's not like it's very clear how things are done. Some of it is you can see the impact of activating these capabilities, but at the same time, for me, honestly, I don't have enough clarity about how it's operating.
Got it. Got it. But it's meant to serve the same, I guess, function of a privacy preserving, more aggregate insights into campaign performance, right?
Yeah, and add to that, it's going to help you as a marketer have get to the results at lower, costs as well. You're enabling some functionalities and some features that helps this advertising partner, get enough insights to deliver results to you back quickly and fast. And it's not just Meta, like Snapchat have
Sure. Yeah.
introduced integrations with MMPs as well. That helps with optimizing iOS campaigns. There's even some, features from Google's side, especially regarding the tiers where you don't have enough data, having some, let's say, predictive data at play to help fill in the gap. So there's a lot that's being introduced by the different advertising partners. But at the end of the day, you're testing out, you're iterating, you're just checking the results, and this is what's going to matter. At the end of the day, you're driving the right results. The users are getting a proper experience, and based on the data, you can just enable or disable a feature.
Yeah. Yeah. No, for sure. That makes sense. What was I had a question. Oh, like specifically things like Meta. Like, so we work closely with Adjust is probably the most frequent MMP we work with directly, would you say?
Yeah.
But this is not necessarily particular just to Adjust, but we like, but I know as of fairly recently, right? Like even Meta's aggregate event measurement data that can be sent directly into a platform like Adjust, right? And so, yeah, so I just want people to understand, like when you said one of the things we often start with is like an audit, it's, part of what we're trying to ensure is like things are configured properly, but also like the data that you can be ingesting and utilizing in those tools is all those pipelines are in place that are set up correctly, right? The data is mapping correctly, attributing correctly, right? Defined correctly. These are all things these are not like, sorry, go ahead.
It's like the data you're ingesting, but also the data you're sharing from the MMP to these different partners as well. Like some of these capabilities are not possible unless you have the SDK of, for example, Meta in your app, or having your MMP's SDK, for example, Adjust, we work very closely with them, having that SDK and the setup, enabling that data sharing as well. But it's like a back and forth relationship, definitely, and that's definitely what we check for when we do the audits. It's there are some essentials that you need covered, and just the big picture of looking for those data anomalies. It's going to help a lot at, if you have an eye for it, just identifying that there could be an issue there and where to dig deeper and what setup to look for, what changes to look for.
And would you say like those are probably the biggest areas? Like say when a client comes to us and says, or maybe even Adjust refers somebody to us or something, and they say, the client is saying like, our MMP is broken, or our data doesn't match. Like, are those the things that we usually see as like, say, a missing SDK, or like misconfigured, or something isn't mapped properly? I mean, is it sometimes down to those little details like that have huge data implications?
Sometimes you'd be surprised how often that happens, but sometimes it's more advanced, like let's say issues, and it's more of how to use the data that's at hand, because that's another layer. So let's say like if we're looking at this in terms of stages, stage one is having those fundamentals covered, and that's not for everyone, by the way. So we just like I had a call with a client yesterday, and they were trying to enable scan for. They haven't launched scan for campaigns yet, and like now there's ad attribution kit as well. And it's evolving, of course. It keeps on changing, but it just so happened that they don't have the minimum requirement of the MMP SDK version, for example. So it's the first time I see it. But again, like the issues are going to depend on each brand where they're currently at. They didn't need Scan 4 or didn't see a need for iOS spending in their market. So it's just becoming now essential that they're going beyond the borders and trying to acquire or serve more users beyond the country itself. So it's now becoming a requirement. So they're lacking the basics of even having the right iOS SDK for that MMP.
Got it. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, it could be that's that, definitely. But other brands, and we see this much more often, they have the essentials covered. It's just that they don't feel that it's broken. Their MMP is broken. No, they feel that they cannot really, there's no tangible ROI. And, in that case, we're trying to help them, leverage the MMP in a way where they can really see the impact on ad spend allocation, cost savings, campaign optimization. And this is where it's not really just an audit, it's an audit and then maybe supporting with 3-4 month engagement and sharing that knowledge from different team members on our side.
And I'm just going to venture a guess here that the latter use case you just mentioned is probably a failure to somebody implemented the tool without having a business aligned use case in mind before they got started. It's probably because then
or a third party,
or a third party.
Not seeing the need to keep the SDK updated with the latest version. So it happens though, it depends on where the brand is, but sometimes it's not a priority, and that's fine. Like nobody could tackle everything in one step.
No.
It's just like as long as they know what's important or these audits are done periodically, that's enough. So we have with some brands now, we're trying to introduce these. They're asking actually for these, periodic audits being done. So why do you go to a doctor, for example? You either have a condition and you want to know what's wrong, or you go for those, periodic tests. You want to just check if we can catch something early on and maybe, try to prevent it. There are professionals, there are tests for that. And the same applies for, your MarTech stack. Somehow, it's not the same, of course, people's health is more important, but still, it's the same methodology. It's either you have a challenge and we're going to need to start with an audit either way, or periodically we can check the MMP setup or your Google Analytics setup or your CEP setup and make sure that it's aligned with your new strategy or with the best practices or industry changes that happened. Yeah. So even these periodic audits are just for you to have confidence in that in the setup you currently have and its alignment with your goals, and that you have an extra set of eyes that's trained to actually check for these anomalies.
Yeah. No, I get it. I mean, it was funny at a prior company, we had this client, they were a home builder, and they had an agency they'd worked with for years. And about every 12 to 18 months, they would call us and they would say, hey, can you have your paid search SME, just do a deep dive into all of our Google ads and Microsoft ads, paid search, campaigns. And it was a lot. And then it was a big account. So it was considerable amount of work just to do that, and we charged them accordingly. And it was but they were happy to do it. They're like, we have no problem with our agency. Their contract with us isn't on the line. For whatever findings you come up with, we just want an independent set of eyes on this. Tell us everything you think is good. Tell us everything you think is bad, and why. And we're happy to pay you. And then you'll hear from us in another 12 to 18 months.
How were the results in your checks? Did you ever find something juicy there?
No, nothing terrible ever. But I mean, there's always hey, these landing pages may not be the ideal, or this creative isn't performing the way the rest of your creative is, or these geo targets are not like comparable to these, the way you have these other markets. So there's always something you can find as a place for improvement. But I don't remember ever finding anything where it's just like a glaring mess up kind of a thing. Yeah.
Still, it gave the team, the confidence that,
Yeah.
they're on a good track. They have the right foundations,
Yeah.
which is, and
Yeah.
I wish we could see that more often. Like I'm starting to see it with some of the brands. It just makes a lot of sense. And to be honest, like, I can't remember like an audit where we had no value to offer or not, like no clear impact. So
No, of
it's
course.
always,
Yeah.
I always find it interesting, like why it doesn't happen more often. But we're starting to see this trend where there's more of a recurring audit being requested.
Yeah. I think what our industry kind of did it to ourselves in a way where for a number of years, I don't know if you remember, but like some of these sort of canned, like half-assed, like sales audits that would, somebody would send you, like I did an SEO audit of your website and like, you're not showing up in the top 5 for the term hotel. And it's like, yeah, no shit. Like, of course I'm not. And neither do I care. And it's like, but you know what I mean? Like for a while, some of these audits that were provided to people they were just sort of lousy crap that like was just sort of meant to start a sales conversation. I think what you're talking about is something where the reason why there's value built into them is like you said earlier, even if there's nothing wrong with your account, whatever it is, a CEP, your search account, there's probably some integration, some features, maybe a new campaign type, some new measurement, like maybe there's a new way to bring in offline conversion data that wasn't available 12 months ago, and just nobody has bothered to do this, right? There's always an opportunity. If there's an organizational will, there's always an opportunity to make something better, even if there's not something technically wrong. And then of course there's always the chance you find something technically wrong too that needs to be fixed. But no, I think when you really do a true audit, and which is why I think like audits are something that should be paid for personally, right? Because even if it's a nominal amount of money, if you really want somebody to spend time looking at like some like with a real set of scrutiny, I think it is valuable work that should be paid for. I think anything people do for free is usually
A question mark, right?
Yeah.
There's like so much value in an audit that you could even take the findings and put them to action yourself.
Yes.
So definitely it's something worth paying for, in my opinion, as well.
Yeah. I mean, I also think too, though, and I'm not somebody to dissuade people from opening their checkbooks and like parting with their hard-earned money if they want to, but I'd be the first person to tell somebody, like new client, existing client, like if there's no organizational will to change something or do something different, there's no reason. For the same reason there's no reason to do analysis and insights work, there's no reason to do an audit. Like if you don't actually care what data and information is telling you, then like if you're just going to go about delivering the same crappy user experience as you are now, like if that's what the data turns out to tell you, like there's no reason to like do the work, because at that point it is just sort of like throwing good money after bad. But if there's a will to if there is an organizational will to, do periodic improvements, continuous improvements, if you are trying to position your brand differently, potentially, or you're having new products you're bringing to market and you want to do so successfully, I think doing some form of audits and analysis is really crucial, because it's going to help inform those changes.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, I think we've been on here for a while. I want to be respectful of your time. I know you're a busy man in high demand across the organization, because you're supporting a lot of areas of the business. But I think this is really useful. Anything we have not touched upon related to, I guess, mobile measurement in particular, but also I guess I'll open it up in terms of customer engagement, and marketing automation type functions. Like anything we haven't touched on that's really important that we kind of close out with?
First, it's always a pleasure, Patrick, and I have all the time in the world for you whenever you want. I'm not that busy, man. You're much busier than I am. But anyways, in this regard, I'll just mention one thing, the correlation we see between both together. So for example, although like we tend to see that MMPs are more impactful when it comes to ad spend optimization, we've had quite a few use cases where we've seen the journeys on the customer engagement side help with lowering acquisition costs as well. And the reason that is possible is that some of the flows and journeys you can create with a customer engagement platform could impact that first transaction, right? And that early onboarding journey. And when you have that event as the optimization criteria for your campaign, if you're actually you have the right journeys in place to optimize that conversion rate from install to that specific event, you're going to improve the performance across all of your marketing spend, not just a specific channel. So
that's an important point. Yeah, that's an important point. And that's also a good reason to maybe consider including all of the potential customer engagement channels that you possibly can, right? Like don't handicap yourself related, like consumers want to hear from brands in different ways and in different parts of the globe. Like for example, WhatsApp's not a huge engagement channel in the US market. Like SMS just on your regular just phone messaging is much more prominent. But in some parts of the world, WhatsApp is like, if you don't have WhatsApp as part of your channel mix, it's a huge miss, right?
Definitely. Yeah. It's always worth experimenting. Again, like it's you just give it a shot, look at the data, and it's you make decisions based on that. But this correlation is also something like we try to keep in mind when we're doing these audits, these integrations, the possibilities there, because it all starts with a challenge or a main problem. Like I have a specific KPI to hit in terms of like lowering acquisition costs. That could include the journeys you have on your CEP, not just your attribution reporting and a marketing budget allocation audit, which is also something we can support with. At the end of the day, it's an overall utilization of the tools you have at play. You can always have more, but that's not as important as really optimizing the current usage of the tools you currently have.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah. And I mean, maybe as we bring this conversation to a close, I think it's important to think. So so what the scenario you just described, it's not just using the tools you currently have, but it's ensuring that they're communicating with one another, right? That they're properly integrated, that they are interoperable, right? That you haven't like designed a technology stack full of dead ends, right? Like there are some practical considerations like that, which again goes back to kind of this maturity model, which is like you should be designing an ecosystem that works together, right? And in order to see those the overlapping benefits of a tool like a mobile measurement partner with your customer engagement tools or with your CDP, if you have all this like great customer unification happening in your CDP, but you haven't figured out a way to activate that CDP data within your customer engagement tools, that's a huge miss, right? Like, so getting all those things to communicate and work together is really important part of getting the most out of your current tool stack.
Truly, like that's the essence of it. It's a good way to end, our chat today. And I'll just add to that, it's also how to use this, whole setup. So the skill set, as you always like say, that skill set is really as essential as the setup being mature and set up properly and integrated.
Yeah. Yeah. And, we never try and sell anything directly on our podcast. We try not to be Doritos salesmen on here too much, but I mean, there really is some value to working with a partner on some of this stuff, whether it would be e-CENS or somebody else. It's just sometimes like if you don't have the skills on your own team in-house today, you need to have a realistic time frame, right? Like if you implement MoEngage or any other customer engagement tool tomorrow, you sign on the dotted line and they activate your account. Like do not expect to be reaping rewards from this tool like the following week on Friday, right? Like there's going to be some ramp up time, some learning. You're going to have to train your team, or you're going to have to work with a consultant to help sort of bridge the gap, right? Like there really is a learning curve, and the tool needs to accumulate some data. There's a whole bunch of things, right? But there is so take the time to get the skills you need, whether that's in-house or with a partner. And as much as we'd love to be your partner, it's not strictly essential that you work with e-CENS as your partner, but we'd love to.
Definitely. Thanks, Patrick, for your time. It's been a pleasure, and hopefully we can do this again soon.
Yeah, maybe we'll do an impromptu one. Maybe we'll. I don't know if Hytham's coming to our summit or not, but maybe we can do a live stream from our company summit or something like that.
No, why not? He'll be there, definitely.
All right, cool, awesome. Yeah, let's do it. All right, my friend. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Ciao.
Ciao. And that's a wrap for this episode of the Digital Disruption Podcast. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into the world of digital transformation and gained valuable insights to help navigate the ever-changing landscape. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions for future episodes, we'd love to hear from you. You can reach us on our website, e-CENS.com, or connect with us on social media. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and stay tuned for more exciting discussions on the forefront of digital innovation. Remember, the future is now, and it's time to embrace the power of transformation. Thanks for listening, and until next time.